Okay, welcome everybody to this Meet the Press EuropeActive webinar, sponsored there with BodyLife, Fitness News, EuropeActive, Gym Factory and HCM and their stable of leisure media publications. I'm really excited about this webinar. The EuropeActive webinars have had between 50 and 500 people on them, and this has got a couple of hundred people, and it's going to be fantastic to hear the viewpoint. We so often get to be asked questions by the press. It's not often we get a chance to ask the press the question. And of course, they are speaking to all kinds of people in our industry, whether it's suppliers, operators, personal trainers, government officials, and they pick up a unique viewpoint. And I think it's a great opportunity for us all to learn some more as we prepare for whatever the new normal is going to be. The process will be that I will moderate and ask questions, and the questions will come up on the screen. In a minute, I'll get the panelists to introduce themselves and their backgrounds. We will then have the questions, which I will address to each panelist. You're all people out there, if you're desperately trying to say something, unable to, because we have obviously silenced you en masse, because the thought of 200 people throwing a question out is a little bit much. But Cliff Collins is moderating in the background, and I really do ask that you put questions on the Q&A button, or the chat button. I think it's the question button, and he will moderate those questions. And then at the end, I will bring Cliff on, who will be able to ask some of the questions further to the ones that have already been sent in. And hopefully we will come out with just a little bit more food for thought and preparation as we go forward across Europe, all at different paces, into whatever the new normal is going to be. So without further ado, I'm Dave Stalker, and I'm the president of EuropeActive, and will host this. Those are my Inés, Thorsten, Barbara, and Liz. Many of you will know them personally, have met them and spoken to them, and they will be the panelists. So I'm going to, as I've got them in that order on the screen, although it has to be noted that Thorsten did say he'd go last because he was the gentleman of the group. But if we could start, Inés, from Gym Factory, just give us an intro to you and your organisation.
Okay, hello. Good morning to everyone. In the first place, I would like to say hello to my colleagues, Barbara, Liz, Thorsten, and the moderator, Cliff, and David, and EuropeActive. And thank you to give us the opportunity, the media, to share our opinions in the fitness industry. And you are right, we are not very used to be asked, so we will try to do our best. Well, I want to briefly introduce Gym Factory. Our media launched 16 years ago as a specialized printed magazine focused on fitness professionals and trainers. Today, we send a daily newsletter of around 6,000 subscribers and have a TV channel with over 660 videos of interviews, events, news, and all kinds of contents focused on the fitness professional. We count in this moment with around 20,000 professionals following us between social media, subscribers, and we as well do events, trade shows, and congresses. Well, and after introducing this media that probably some of you or many of you know, I will answer to your question, and this is: what do you feel is the role of a specialist trade media when a crisis occurs? What can we tell you? I think we are very important. We need to be there. You know, since this happens, we have trying to give voice to organizations, suppliers, operators, especially in our case Spanish, but as well international. We consider we are very important. We need to be there. We need to inform. But in our case, we always like to go one step forward. And we had done a little survey and asked our followers what do they think about the press. We only gave them 3 possible answers, and is saying what do they want to hear and what do they think about the press. Do you want to hear only direct news strictly related to the fitness sector? Or would you like to know, in this case, to know what reasons have caused this crisis? And the third one was the same, but the reasons that cause this crisis, as long as these news are directly affecting our sector. And the answers were, the 80% said this. They want to hear the news and they want to know what happened, but they only wanted to know the factors that provoke this crisis, as long as they have to do with our sector. Something that can be surprising, but it is the way they want us to ask, okay? So I don't want to take more time than I...
Great, thanks very much for that. It's really interesting. And yes, I think everyone gets so much national news that from our trade news, we want to know how it is affecting our sector and maybe the opportunities that come out to it. I'm going to skip from that original order and go to Barbara. Barbara, introduce yourself, and the same sort of opening question would be helpful.
Right. Well, thank you. And hello, everyone. I guess Fitness News Europe is really quite different to the other publications, because it's a business news publication which covers the entire European market. And it's really targeting high-level professionals in the industry who actually pay a subscription to receive it every 2 weeks. And so the European scope really gives it, puts it in a kind of unique position to bring some added perspective from the European point of view. So for example, I think it's very useful for readers, for fitness club operators as well as suppliers, to hear how things are going in the first countries where clubs have reopened, like the Czech Republic a few weeks ago, Switzerland, and Nordrhein-Westfalen in Germany, and also to hear of the experiences of operators in countries where clubs never really closed entirely, such as Sweden and Finland. So it's really about I think the key element here is to bring a Europe-wide business perspective, and also a more practical kind of best practices and ideas as to how people in other countries are handling this situation.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Barbara. Can I go straight to you, Liz? And much the same question and a quick background at HCM and everything great it does.
Thank you. Yeah, Liz Terry. I'm from Leisure Media. We've been in business 40 years. We cover 27 different leisure industries globally, and health and fitness is one of the most important of those to us. So we publish HCM magazine, which we have here. You can see our work at leisuremedia.com, and we just launched a publication called Fit Tech a couple of weeks ago, which is taking a deeper dive into the fitness technology market. So the Fit Tech Global is the name of that. Because we cover 27 different sectors, including sports, health and fitness, well-being, health, and the spa and wellness market, for example, as well as things like tourism, our remit is to bring a lot of information from those industries into the health and fitness sector, to look at, first of all, transferring best practice, and secondly, to bring inspiration from those markets and enable companies to look for partnerships and that kind of thing as well. We publish across a very wide variety of channels. So we publish in print, digital, social, online. And our philosophy is that we just put all of our content everywhere in every format, and then we allow the reader to decide how they consume it. So some people love to get it on social media, some people still have a print magazine, So we don't really put up any barriers to our content. We let everybody decide how they use it. With a global media partner for FIBO, we also work with EuropeActive, which we helped to found. We work with EuropeActive, we work with URSA. So we're very much supporting the global infrastructure of this industry. And because we've been around 40 years, we helped to start a lot of it, which has been a great journey to grow up with it. And our team have been together 35 odd years. So we've grown up with this industry, which has been fantastic. I think that the role that we play at the moment is not only to inform, but also to analyse. I think it's very important to start putting things in context. Also, sometimes we have to be an honest friend and actually say, you know, if we see something that we think the industry could be stepping up to improve, that we will challenge sometimes on things like that, while still bearing in mind that we want the greater industry to thrive. So we don't want to be troublesome and disruptive, but we do want to make sure that we're on the right track. So we've been working super hard the last few months. I mean, I don't think I've ever worked so hard. Our web traffic has doubled in that time, so there's clearly a huge appetite for information about what's going on. So we're tracking around the world, we're reporting on what's going on in China, US, across Europe, across the UK, so that we're sharing information about who's opening, what kind of responses they're getting in terms of return of members, any issues that they're getting and so forth. So yeah, busy time, but I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Liz. Thorsten, over to you.
Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you for your time to be part of this webinar. Thanks to EuropeActive to have the opportunity to speak here with Inés, Barbara and Liz about the main topics in media. First of all, I hope that you, your families and all the people around you are healthy. A bit about myself and our company. I'm the Managing Director of BodyLife Media. We have 3 fitness titles and with corresponding internet platforms and events like the BodyLife Award, which is known as the Oscar for the industry, where gym owners honor the industry who are active on the fitness sector for the performance in the past year. We are proud to be media partner for FIBO, like Liz said, and EuropeActive. BodyLife is Europe's #1 trade magazine. We are only trade magazine which is published monthly, and we have loyal subscribers for years. The trainer magazine is focused on training, career, education, and events. And the target group is instructors, coaches, trainers, and additionally also from the medical market like physiotherapy. And functional training magazine, which is a special interest magazine. It's also aimed to personal trainers, physiotherapists, and ambitious recreational athletes. The content consists of reports and interviews on topics of functional training, athletic training, mobility, nutrition, and rehabilitation. Our authors are national and international experts, passing knowledge on to our readers and subscribers. As I said, we organized the BodyLife Award. In the last year, we created a new award which is focused on startups and innovative products and concepts. The winner of this award is voted by our readers and the fitness community. A new event which we launched last year, the first time, is the Grow Up. It's the first German-speaking boutique studio congress. The content is created for gym owners and prospective founders of group gyms. Our expert forums are networking events where keynote speakers deliver on specific key topics, and an expert talk is organized around it. The industry has also presents itself on a small exhibition area, and this event gives gym operators and trainers the opportunity to come in direct contact with experts and discuss topics in detail. More about our publishing company you can find on our webpage or follow us on Facebook or Instagram. Now to the question, the role of media or specialist media is to process what has happened on a factual basis. unbiased explanation that sheds light on the subjects from different angles, so the reader can form an appropriate picture of the situation. The corona crisis is unprecedented for all of us. There are always new findings to report and provide information on a daily basis. The gym have been closed in Germany since mid of March. During this time, one of our tasks as a leading specialist publisher was to provide our readers and subscribers with content which they could draw solutions from the closure for the gyms. For example, what has to be considered for online courses and videos, which legal hurdles had to be taken into account for the closure, and how to apply for emergency assistance.
That's fantastic. I skipped away there because my phone was ringing in the background, but I could hear you chat as you spoke. What I want to do now is go to the main questions. Look, everybody, we just heard the introduction there, and it really should be a privilege and honor to be listening to these people. They really hear so much about what's going on and share it with us. And it has to be said, in the case of some of them, can dish out a pretty hard interview. So let's move on to the first question. What I'll do is I'll put it up on the screen and then pass it on to an individual, and we'll try and spend no more than 7 or 8 minutes on each question. So it's punchy as answers as we possibly can get would be fantastic. So the first question there, in what caught your attention of the COVID-19 impact in terms of positive measures implemented in the fitness sector, and why? And I'm going to start that question and put it to Barbara.
Right. Well, I think the first thing I would say is that I was quite impressed by the solidarity that it brought out in some countries. We saw, for example, in the Netherlands, two organizations that don't usually work together sitting at the same table. We've seen the same in France. So that could be regarded as a positive, and hopefully that will continue to yield wins for the industry at large in the years ahead. On individual responses, I think there's so many. It's really quite difficult to pick out anything. But very obviously, this has been quite a seminal moment for the tech-oriented companies that are really accelerating the creation of more hybrid models. I would certainly refer to people like Wexer, like Function, that have stepped up and very much accelerated the development of products that were already in place to be able to help gyms to offer this hybrid solution. Going forward as well. In terms of equipment makers as well, I mean, they've been very reactive. I would point to maybe two, but there's many more. Maybe eGym that has come up with that has basically paused projects in which it's invested millions of euros to come up with this very specific programs aimed at boosting immunity and also Life Fitness has just come up with a whole package of marketing as well as content materials specifically for gym reopenings. And then of course on the gyms, I think two of the most complete and thorough operators in this crisis well documented, because they also appeared on previous webinars organized by EuropeActive, specifically Pure Gym, which to me stood out also for the initiatives they've taken to really engage their staff as well as their members, and SATS in terms of the contents that they've been able to ramp up massively online and outdoors as well. So just
brilliant. Yeah, fantastic. What it shows is the acceleration and the speed with which people move, the creativity and the passion, not just for the industry, but not just for their product, but also the people who work for them. The same question, anything you'd like to kind of add to that, Inés? Over to you.
Well, I agree completely. You know, the solidarity is the word that, thanks to God, is being used most lately. We are very surprised on how all the industry reacted to this tremendous crisis. And besides all the company that you said before, yes, we can say that here all the chains, they are trying, and companies, to give a free training to the people, not only, you know, their clients, but others as well. They try to do with their gyms, some of the operators, as much as they could. For instance, ActiveFit, they their clients, they donated their membership to buy a medical supply. Others, like Holiday Gym, lend the facilities to do COVID tests. Synergy offer the facilities as well for the health staff. But I must say that most touching has been GoFit, that they have donated 20 breathers to the campaign hospital created in IFEMA, which is our most important venue. But you know, let me add something that wasn't in this question, and it's about the associations. I have to talk about our association, FENAID, that is doing a fantastic job. They are working extremely hard. First of all, because, you know, our government, they are actually acting, you know, like with an incredible improvisation. So whatever they say you can do today, they change it tomorrow. So every time you try to settle down which are the lines to follow, they are being changed again. So our association is really doing a tremendous job. They are in contact with the ministries of industry, of finance, of health, and of course the Superior Council of Sports. They are doing a fantastic job.
Thanks very much for that. I guess on behalf of associations, I'll say thank you for that last comment. It's funny, I've worked in them forever and a day, and we've been pushing the importance of the exercise medicine bit, and it's taken, unfortunately, a disaster for the world to wake up and realize it. And it's great to hear associations are pushing the message through individually. Hi, Liz, can I go to you now, please?
Yes, sure. I mean, I think one of the big things for me about this amazing unity that we've been seeing is how the industry is banding together to fight its corner in the wider world, in terms of getting government support for employees and investment support for the businesses, and changes of legislation across Europe, which are going to really support the industry going forward. So it's almost that we're banding together against a common enemy to sort of protect our sector. And that extends to reputation with investors and that kind of thing. You know, we really are doing a very good job of making the case for why the industry remains a good investment prospect. There's some fantastic research coming out, so the research people have swung into action to get the facts and figures that we need to be able to defend our sector. So I think that's one of the biggest things that's happened for me, having worked in the health and fitness market since the beginning. And individual operators, I think what it's really shown as well is that those that have really, really powerful personal engagement with their members and have means to express that personal engagement are the ones that have really done some exciting things. You know, there's been a lot of sort of just process where things have just shut down and there hasn't been much engagement, but the ones that really have reached out and sort of kept connected with members, that they've really fallen into two camps, operators, I think, going through this crisis, that those with engagement, those without. And I think those without are really looking at the ones that have got that and saying, we want that too, how can we get that going forward? Because that personal feeling of ownership by the member is proving to be invaluable from on a human level and on a commercial level.
Yeah, I agree entirely, and I love that word solidarity of the sector. And even listening to the first three, you first three are speaking, we've heard so many. I work Pure Gym, GoFit, you know, Live Fitness, eGym, SATS, all these people who have come out and spoken and just been so open in terms of having the door open on how we can work together to get through this. It has been a fantastic united fitness and health and fitness effort, coordinated in a large part by the press and you guys. So Thorsten, over to you.
Yeah, I fully agree. Everyone working in our sector, whether gym operators, trainer, or an industrial company, have always been very close to the market participants and target groups. And thanks to this close relationship, we as an industry, or we as the participants on this market, can react to the wishes and concerns to our customers very quickly and adapt our services. And try to find skills we need to meet better requirements and expectations. Many companies, you said, David, have created free solutions, offers, concepts for gym owners and trainers. For example, we placed all these activities on our webpage and promote this to our media channel to bring this to the readers in our target group. As a special example, we had a gym owner who creates his own gym in a virtual gym and gives their members tips for training at home, nutrition tips, and game instructions for the childcare.
I think you draw together all the points there, and I think that I'm going to lead, Thorsten, with you with the next question on the back of that, because when I listen to everybody there and everything that the industry is doing in order to pull together to get through this, ultimately what it has to be doing is has to be looking about at how this is going to affect society, whether that's physical well-being or mental well-being, and how people come back to this, and how the general community are going to come back and embrace our sector. So I'm curious to know how you see this current pandemic sort of affecting this society's physical, social, and mental health, and I guess what our role will be as an industry in spreading the benefit of physical activity, and maybe the challenges we're going to have. Just the other day, I did a much smaller webinar, and when I asked, everyone was visible, and there was about 40 people on it, whether they wanted to open today or in 3 months' time, I have to say that 40 people went for 3 months' time. So as much as they're keen and anxious and want to get going, they're also nervous. As an industry, we've got one opportunity to get this right. So over to you, Thorsten.
Yeah, and it's undisputed that the restrictions on public life resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic have numerous negative physical and psychological effects, and will continue to accompany us for a very long time, for sure. And due to the initial restrictions and isolations, the resulting lack of exercises can lead to diabetes, depression, and cardiovascular problems, for example. And to mitigate the psychological consequences of COVID-19, it is important to provide the population with access to health-oriented physical activities. Strength training and strength combined with endurance training have many positive effects that have been scientifically proven. And the variety of training offers at gyms gives here the best advantages for the society. Thanks to qualified, health-oriented, supported for the people training, there's protection against any unintentional side effects of the training. In addition, the risk of infections with the coronavirus for the people training and employees cannot be excluded, but at least minimized if the scientifically based concept of measures is adhered to. It is important to find individual solutions and address the members' fears and concerns. As a result, we consulted with virologists, tax consultants, and crisis managers at the very early stage, and set up an expert board, which is available for our readers and subscribers.
It's fascinating to listen to, because actually you start to get the nature of the publications and the people and you know, and that very thorough which I would always put in that BodyLife stable, thorough, organized. Let's get the facts. Let's drive this forward. What are the areas? I'm going to go now to Liz. I know, Liz, not just from a point of view of your own publications, but you personally, a very holistic, mindful person who must have a lot of views, particularly on the social and mental health issue and how we can work going forward on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the time between now and when we get back to some moment of stability is just the critical point. And, you know, that's going to be a very, very difficult path to follow, because the governments of the world have marketed fear very effectively. So they have made everybody very afraid of this virus. And at a very visceral kind of level, you know, we've slid right down Maslow's hierarchy of need, right from the very top to the bottom, pretty much overnight. So people are thinking, how do they defend and protect their families and their loved ones? So reversing that sort of visceral fear is going to be quite difficult. I think it's going to be very much generational, and that younger people will be much more out there than the older people going forward immediately. And that gyms need to brace themselves for a lot of people coming back with mental health problems and get their staff trained up to deal with that. So, you know, we'll need to look to gym staff getting their mental health first aider training as quickly as possible, so that we can really help members when they start coming back, you know, whatever order they come back in. We're looking today at the new research that's just come out saying that 87% of people in the UK intend to go back to the gym, and another 27% say that they will join from scratch. So those are some very positive numbers. It's just what time frame that's going to happen over and how we make that journey with our members, I think. So I think it's going to be generational. I think it will be, there will be social issues around this. You know, certain social groups will return before others, and some social groups will need more help, particularly people who maybe operators where the members are frontline workers, where they are more likely to bring COVID to the gym. So those kind of operators with those kind of member profiles will need to have a different, possibly a slightly higher level of alert than gyms where that isn't the case. You know, so there are a lot of factors here. One of the biggest ones for me that I think we're kind of overlooking as an industry is our focus on our staff. Everybody's very concerned about the members. They're very concerned about when they can reopen, so the business. I think there's been a bit of a blind spot with the actual people, and we are noting from the feedback we're getting to our coverage that quite a lot of people who work in gyms actually don't particularly want to go back to work at the moment. And I think that's something that as an industry we need to be talking about more and looking for solutions. They didn't sign up to be frontline workers in a pandemic necessarily. And in actual fact, in going back to the gym in the next couple of months at least, that is the situation some of them will find themselves in. So, you know, there's a whole issue for me around how we deal with that. And make sure that, you know, we have to be realistic. Some of them might not want to come back. They might change careers and so forth. So I don't think we can just assume that we open, the staff come back, the members come back, and things will gradually rebuild without having some kind of awareness of those things. So yeah, there's just a few thoughts from me.
Brilliant, Liz. I agree entirely. We can't forget our people. They are coming back. But they, you know, they've been affected by this, and we know that we're an industry full of outgoing people. Many of them have been in their houses and flats and have had for the first time have actually not been able to be those outgoing, fun-filled people, and actually will be coming back with their own issues. And I hope companies are ready to embrace that. And the other point that I think we have read so much negative press. I know Inés mentioned it earlier that our people want to hear things that affect our industry, but our own national press is full of bad news stories all the time.
Yeah.
And actually, the role of the media of coming back and giving those good news and the things that are happening and the partnerships and the rest of it will be crucial. Barbara, over to you.
Well, yes, I think, you know, a lot has been said and written already about, you know, the upside for gyms, for the industry at large in terms of increased health awareness and you know, the opportunity for gyms to really position themselves as being health providers. I would say that also, you know, just to add something that may be a bit different is that is that also there has been heightened awareness of the benefits of being active outdoors. And this is something that currently the industry doesn't provide very much. Ziela's Publications, which is the publisher of Fitness News Europe, is also the publisher of Sporting Goods Report, which covers the wider sports and outdoor industry. And there are very interesting prospects for that industry. They're preparing for staycations, people spending more holidays at home in the short term. But also in the long term, I think there are plenty of opportunities for the industry to, where possible, invest more in deploying or in developing outdoor complementary outdoor solutions. And maybe a little bit parallel to that is that sustainability is a word I hear on a daily basis in the sports industry. I hardly ever hear it in the fitness industry. And there is a very heightened awareness as well of sustainability issues on the back of this health crisis. And so maybe that also is something that the industry should work on much more intensely. I think it does have a negative connotation at present in that area. So maybe that's something for Cliff, I don't know, to develop a standard for sustainable gyms. But yes, I think that has been overlooked, and there's an opportunity to capitalize on the increased interest of consumers at this point.
I think that is such a valid point, and we live in a world that during this period of time we've seen, I don't know, in the UK for the first time I'm looking out at proper blue skies and seeing clear water and breathing in fresh air. It would be a real shame to come out of this crisis to just dive backwards in terms of everything that the world has positively done itself as a result of forcing us indoors, and we need to be active in terms of sustainability. I strongly agree with you on that. As an industry, we don't put it as forward as we should. Lastly, on this question, Inés, over to you.
Well, I can tell you from the point of view of Spain. We are a very close people. For us, going out, taking sun, share. I mean, eating is not feeding. It is a social act. We need to hug, we need to kiss, we need to go out. And so this is affecting our population really hardly. Actually, there are some cases of violence that have been increased, and lonely people that really is having a very tough time. But I must say something. We have to see the good part of this too. Socially speaking, and this is the positive part of being with the family, of sharing with the kids. Though for some of them, it's been a little hell to work in the living room with the children screaming and jumping around, but it's been really entering. In another way, I'm talking about business. I've been talking with some people in our industry that are really changing their minds. They are saying, my God, I realize with this new moment how much time, how much money I've been spending in trips without seeing my family, without doing a normal life. And now I realize that I can do much more work from home. They are all the time busy. Some of them, I cannot talk to them now. I used to talk to them briefly sometimes, but now I have a webinar, I have a meeting, I have everything. So this has shown us that we can do things in another way. It's a positive thing too. And about the general view of our industry of physical activity, I think is so obvious that we need all the society to have this physical activity, which is connected completely with physical and mental health as well. We are seeing it every day in television. So I think this is going to it has its positive part too.
I think that we all have a wry smile at the thought of children appearing behind us and jumping across us in the middle of a call, and we've all been in there. But I do think I have loved the fact that has been a huge positive. When I've held Zoom calls with my own staff interrupted by children. It just brings a whole reality to the world we live in, and a familyness, and I like that a lot. Before we move on to the last question, just a reminder to everybody that please ask questions on the button on the webinar. So if we have a little bit of time at the end, Cliff can pose those questions. So going on to, and now of course my screen is frozen. Fantastic. No, it hasn't. Question. This is the last question, which is, how do you see the new normal and your respective media coverage of that new normal? You know, this the corona changes. What is the new normal? How do we tackle the shutdowns? You know, the negative effects that Liz mentioned, and the main press, and being more positive. And you've heard so many things. So from the new normal, what do you think it'll look like as gym operators, as global operators, and any media tidbits are more than welcome in there. I'm going to actually start this time with Barbara.
Right. Well. You know, I think the new normal will be very much dictated by the protocols that are currently being implemented in different places, in different ways in different countries, and bringing with them different realities. I mean, we've seen from experiences of clubs that have reopened that the traffic is significantly down. And we have seen also that it's building up quite strongly, and also that there have been significant sales. But what I would also add is that certainly one of the focus areas for Fitness News Europe, which you know, again is really a business publication, will be the economic fallout. There are of course, you know, very few people who believe that this will leave the industry intact. So, you know, how this will pan out in terms of accelerating maybe a sort of cleanup in some parts of the industry, that is something that will be certainly in focus for us, but also the opportunities that come with that. I mean, we've seen you know, consolidation in the European industry with some cross-border acquisitions accelerating, and that is something that I very much expect to continue. This being said, there are also companies that are significantly leveraged. So, you know, how will they come out of that? You know, the economic impact more broadly, yeah, I think that is the kind of new normal that will be shaped in the next few years, or well, maybe not years plural, but you know, it will take more than a couple of months.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're probably right with a few years, but the sort of leveraging of businesses, the consolidation, the closing, the whole business side is going to set a fascinating landscape. Thorsten, over to you.
Yeah, like Barbara said, what is the new normal? We are all together in a situation that has never existed before, and that could not planned in this way. From the perspective of the media, there's skepticism towards the media and the increases of the fake news or alternative facts is unfortunately a very regrettable but not a new phenomenon. And in our opinion, it's only possible through legged and fact-based journalistic work. And when our online presence and social media channels enable us to provide information quickly, we must not forget that we have a duty to look at everything with a critical eye and stay true to our core values. We see it as a matter of vital importance to present every perspective regarding the topics, the situation, and the people they are affected, to allow our readers to reach the right conclusions. Our editors, and I speak for Inés, Barbara, and Liz too, have stood for previously these values for years and will go on with it. At the beginning of the pandemic and the lockdown, we looked how we could best help and support our target group. And I think this is in this situation and in upcoming situations the important thing for the new normal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the new normal. I'm already a little bit fed up with the words "new normal." So so maybe the creativity of the media can come out with something that we can call it other than that for our sector. But you are right, and I do think there is going to be something around new normal and positivity in our industry that we need to get back into that. Inés, over to you.
I agree with you. You know, I'm quite fed up with this new normal. That sounds to me like a movie title, you know. And I hope this new normal is going to be very short. We need to start living with this virus. I mean, now we have the situation we have, and it's going to be there for obviously a few months, maybe 1 year until we have the vaccine. But yeah, now, what we need to do? Well, everyone is doing what they are asking us to do, is to wear gloves, to wash our hands, disinfection, to be keeping the distance, security distance. But I mean, this new normal needs to be as short as possible. This is a virus that is attacking us, and it's like we have a common enemy. Everybody's trying to find a vacuum. Everybody's is trying to deal with this at the moment, but let's say this new normal will be there, and we will have to fight with it for a while. I want to tell you something that I hear this weekend that really scandalized me from the WHO. They say now that they found that they can't confirm that the virus is contagious by touching surfaces. Imagine how things can change if they have been telling us for half a year, since December in China, that you have to be very careful with touching everything, and now they say no, we can't say, because those investigations were done in a closed laboratory, and now when we go to the real life, we find out that there is no virus anywhere. I mean, what's going on? Can't you imagine how this affects to our industry? I mean, all the operators are trying to see how they can be cleaning surfaces. How can they stop people, avoid them from touching anything? And now, a few days ago, they tell us, no, really, we are not in danger if we do that. So it's like us. What can we say? I mean, the press. What do you believe? What you don't? I mean, is the who? So.
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't know whether that's good news or bad news. I know that I'll still be washing my hands, covering them in disinfectant, and putting gloves on, because yeah, I need. Yeah, there need to be a few more bits of research before I jump down that one. But you're right. What is good news? What is bad news? And what is happening? Liz, I'm going over to you as the last person to answer this final question before we go to questions and answers.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that this is going to be a permanent state of affairs. I can't see COVID-19 going away ever. I think unless it fizzles out like SARS did, and it's not showing any signs of behaving like that. So I think we're just going to have to learn to live with it, and you know, it will settle into place. We'll control it. We might get some type of vaccine that some people might be able to have, but I think you know, we've got to start operating as if this is the way forward. And I think we're going to see a huge amount of disruption in the industry. It's almost in hibernation at the moment, and once we start coming out of hibernation, that's when we'll start seeing the reshaping of things. And in the same way that it's felt as if life has been on fast forward for many of us for the last few weeks, I think we're going to have another year or so of that at least, while the industry sort of settles down into this new reality of how we're going to need to not only be operating, but the economics of it, the business models, I think we'll see those being reshaped in many cases. For me, one of the big things that this has highlighted is the weakness of the gym business model in terms of business interruption. You know, it's very vulnerable to business interruption, and anybody with a major investment in this sector is going to be looking at that and thinking, you know, how do we diversify this business really fast to get new income streams? So I think they will be looking at quite big changes in the business models going forward as gym operators start to look for ways to sort of stabilize their businesses, you know, in light of this kind of level of business interruption. We'll see new companies emerging from the ashes of some of the ones that fail, and sites that are shared and potentially not reopened might be consolidated and made into new businesses. So I think that there will be a general moving around of the real estate portfolios among the major operators. I think we'll see when we start to come out of hibernation, quite a few sites just don't get reopened, and then we've got to figure out what we do with those. There's very definitely a huge opportunity for us to do a better job, as you've said, in terms of lobbying the national press. I've thought for many years that the gym sector needed better representation to the national press in terms of them really understanding and empathizing with what we do, and not just sort of casting a glance in our direction every now and then and sort of popping out a story, but really being behind what we do. And we have a very powerful argument. We track and publish a lot of the research into the exercise science in addition to our other coverage. And, you know, we did a story quite recently about the University of Virginia. They've researched and discovered a substance called Exod, which is secreted by the muscles during exercise, which protects you from the worst effects of the coronavirus. You know, so we need to be representing to the national media about these kinds of things so that they've got the science. There's a load of new research about vitamin D and how vitamin D levels determine outcomes from COVID-19. And the great irony of that is that obviously what governments have done is locked everybody indoors. So for many months, lowering their vitamin D levels and then sending them back out. So they are more likely to be susceptible to COVID as a result of that. So, you know, the whole health lobby around what we can deliver as an industry with things, as Barbara was saying, like outdoor exercise and the benefits of exercise. I think we need a better lobby on that. I also believe that there's a need for a consumer standard going forward in terms of giving people confidence in our market. And I would really like that to be an EU standard, so that, you know, we can almost have a stamp sort of on the door, if you like, that, you know, we are adhering to this level and to try to get that confidence. Obviously, we have to deliver on it once we've developed it, and it has to be economically viable, but I think that we're going to need to go to those lengths. And I hope that this unity that the industry is showing can lead to those kinds of things happening. But I think ultimately, all of this is all down to what the outcomes will be. You know, if we can have one-way systems in our gyms, we can have antiviral fogging and antiviral aircon and UV sanitation and, you know, till the end of the earth. And it sounds great, but if somebody does a piece of research which shows that our gyms are super spreaders of COVID-19 or anything else that comes after it, then all that will have been for nothing. So we have to really be focused on the outcomes, not just the process. I think that's really, really important as businesses. And just be aware that, you know, it will only take one study to show that gyms are spreading for it to hit the whole sector. There's a piece out at the moment about something that happened in February in Korea in the group exercise class, where, you know, an awful lot of people got the virus. And that was before really we understood it. That was before these protocols were put in place and so forth. So obviously the industry is pushing back on that piece of knowledge circulating. But, you know, that gets to the consumer. They don't always read the detail. So I think that, you know, if we're going to defend our sector going forward and settle down into this new reality of living with COVID-19 and thriving in spite of that, we have to do all these things. So there's a lot of work to do. And yeah, and I'm very energized by the response of this market. As I said, we track 27 different leisure industries, from hospitality to spa and wellness and tourism. And, you know, the health and fitness industry has absolutely stood out for me during this time of all the markets we're covering for its just sheer energy and guts. You know, there's just been this drive to represent and to respond, and it's been fantastic. And so I think that all of this stuff is possible. We can develop new services around well-being. I think that one of the final challenges is going to be recruitment. You know, I mentioned before, will we get our staff back to the gyms when we reopen? Will some of them step out and just say, I don't want to be a frontline worker? We don't always pay the best, especially on the gym floor. And those people are going to be critical to delivering these COVID-related services. So as we start to recruit the next generation of people into the gyms, are people going to want to come and work in them? So, you know, I feel that this whole point of standards, consumer standards and outcome focus is going to be as much around attracting people to work in the sector as it is to getting our customers back. Because if we don't have any staff, for a lot of people, that's going to be a real problem. And we know that there were staff shortages even before the virus struck. So, yes, I could talk all day about this, but yeah, they're just a few thoughts from where I'm seeing things.
But thanks very much, Liz. And I agree entirely. What we can't be is be a hotspot and it all find that it kicks off in some gym, because that will just take us backwards so quickly. I also agree that a kite mark or a stamp of, I mean, years and years ago, we tried to do that at EuropeActive. And when you spoke to every member, they said, yes, if we knew that that's what the stamp meant in terms of quality of offering, then we would take heed of it. And never before has there been an opportunity to put together a good guideline and standards on the back of a kite mark supported at European level to say that this facility is abiding by those standards, to give the consumer confidence to come into them. Anyway, once again, we're now going to go. Definitely, I'm telling you, everybody, you might not believe me, but my screen has 100% definitely frozen.
We can still see you.
Oh, there we go. Questions and answers. Cliff, can I hand over to you? We've got a couple of minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. What a fascinating insight from the perspective of our journalists. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but just to try and summarise some of the points which people have been making here. And this was triggered by actually Brian Morris from Espria Clubs. And he was making the point that however positive the messages might be, there's always these people who like to try and find the negative in it. And it would be my experience that you can conduct some pretty hard interviews over the years with us. And as journalists, you look also for the two sides of any point being made. So what would be the trick of the trade, perhaps, if I describe it that way, of how you're in an interview with somebody and you're trying to be really positive and you suddenly find that curveball coming into you, looking for the negativity in that situation? What could we do then collectively to try and get out a much more positive message and push back in these areas where people do still like to attack the fitness sector?
Who do you want to push it towards, Cliff? I'll let you...
Well, on my screen, I'm not sure if it's the same order as yours, Dave, but I'll start in the middle. So that's actually Inés.
Well, you know, this is I understand the question, because for us it's quite difficult. We need to show what's the reality, and we need to be positive. But there is, you know, in every situation, there is a positive, as I was saying before, a positive part and the negative. What you cannot do is, because you want to be too positive, is hiding what's going on. But besides, you can just not only focus on the negativeness, because otherwise, you know, is the message that we give is really not real. I mean, we need to learn from every situation. I know we are in a very hard moment, but we all have to learn how to deal with it and know that this is not going to last forever. What else can I say? I mean, we try to always, and I think all of us, is not only my question, I think all the media, not only for fitness, you know, if you see all the news all the time that are, you know, there are waves of information in TV, in the social media. There are messages, positive and negative, but we need to keep in the, you know, in balance.
Thorsten, what's your take on this?
Yeah, if I understand it right, we as a fitness industry need to hold true and act upon the same shared values. All of us found the way to the fitness sector because of the people we work with and their health at the end of the process. Our actions need to be orientated towards this, and the well-being of every single person must be our top priority. If we succeed in this, we will come back stronger from this crisis than before, I'm sure. And we will have clear and suitable strategies for the next pandemic. This is, yeah.
But Barbara, do you have a comment?
Well, maybe the position is slightly different in the sense that Fitness News Europe, is a business news publication. It's read by professionals, by high-level business people, and frankly, they have no interest in cheerleading. They have interest in knowing, what's going on, what's going well, what's not going well. So I think they would be very disappointed to read anything in Fitness News Europe that doesn't ask the hard questions.
Liz, do you have a comment? And then I have a second question for you.
I just want to make sure I've understood the question correctly. Is Brian saying, how do you handle it when a journalist asks you a negative question?
Yes, yes. But other people are also commenting that the good stories that we're trying to put out there can get turned back on us quite easily. And I think the point you were making in Korea was an example, how something small becomes something very big, and we're on the back foot.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're two separate things. Like, if the question is how do you deal with a journalist asking you a negative question, I think the starting point is don't rush the answer. So take time to think about what you're going to say. You're not obliged to answer any question if you think it's an unfair question. If you think it's a fair question but it's a tough question, reflect on it, and I would say answer as honestly as you can in the circumstances. So you've got those two options: either say, well, I'd really rather not talk about that, which is fine if you're in an interview, and or answer it thoughtfully and honestly and realistically and authentically. I think if you're giving an interview to a good journalist and you're being authentic, then that is really that makes all the difference. If you want to do some media management, you could ask for some kind of final sign-off on the piece. Most publishers won't give you the chance to change things that you've said on the record, but they will allow you to change things that are factually inaccurate, so you can have some kind of control over what goes out on that basis. I mean, I don't think any decent journalist would ask only easy questions during an interview. You want to be finding out people's opinions on things that matter, and some of the things that matter are tough, especially at the moment. So I wouldn't shy away from people who ask you tough questions. But or you could employ the politician's device of answering a different question, which is what some people do. So imagine the question you would have liked to have been asked and answer that one. So there are lots of techniques when it comes to being interviewed that enable you to say what you want to say. But honestly, I do find, obviously we interview a lot of CEOs, and I find that the ones that are frank come across as being very honest and that they say meaningful things that are useful. They share, that they can be very disarmingly frank, and I know that the industry appreciates that. So I wouldn't think that frankness is always going to be a bad thing. Sometimes it's really good to show your human side in an interview and really share.
Thank you very much. And Liz, in an answer to question 3, you went into the area of preparedness of gyms, and particularly the staff working in these gyms, to be ready to work with customers returning, members coming into the clubs.
Yeah.
We had recently concluded a survey of EuropeActive members, and that came up with 73% saying that they expected to be coming back into the sector working as fitness trainers again. So that would indicate to us quite a significant number of people not expecting to return. We already do have severe skill shortages across the sector. And you were then talking about how people can be better prepared to deal with members coming in with mental health issues and so on. Do you think, as an industry, we really have got the measure of this? Do you think what can we do? What should we be doing at the moment? What's your top-down view on this?
I think we've been totally blindsided by this personally. I think the majority of people running gyms have been thinking about their business, their finances and their customers, and not really thinking about their staff. We published a piece quite recently when the UK government changed its stance on outdoor exercise and it became clear that one-to-one personal training was allowed. We published a news story on that which went viral across the PT networks. And a lot of the feedback we were getting was, how dare you push us back into the front line? We don't want that. And also you're shortchanging me on my furlough payments. And I think that's another issue for people where governments are paying furlough. If you've got somebody who's been furloughed, they're getting 80% of their salary on furlough and they're allowed to go and work for other people. So they may be now getting a second income. They could be doing quite well financially. If they're hauled back out of that early, then they will actually be quite resentful about the fact that their finances, they've been shortchanged on their finances. So I think that the financial situation for staff that have been working in gyms is a factor which maybe operators haven't really anticipated, particularly because quite a lot of them aren't that well paid anyway in the gyms, and the benefits aren't so great. So yes, Cliff, I do agree. I think that if you're finding 27% of people you've polled are saying they're not coming back, and we were already short of staff, and then you factor in the point about their pay as well, I think it's something the industry needs to look at. Maybe the industry organisations need to set a bit of a working group to investigate this. And also we could work with the training companies because they're doing a great job of offering lots of really fantastic, sometimes free, sometimes subsidised online training to help people use the furlough period for upskilling. And I'm sure they would be interested in helping with this. And also the whole point about the mental health first aid training, I think that will help the people who are coming back to work with their own mental health, and it will enable them to help members who come back who have had, in some cases, quite distressing times during the lockdown.
Excellent. If I could make an unashamed plug for a webinar we held a couple of weeks ago with Paul Bedford and Jamie Edwards, we went into this area in some depth, and that is recorded and on our COVID-19 webpage, so you can go back and have a look at that. I think both of those presenters made some very interesting points around this area. But in 2 weeks, for sure, it's moved on already.
Yeah, I mean, things are moving so fast. That's the challenge. There is one other thing that I would flag up that I've been seeing, and that is that the hospitality industry has obviously got a huge amount at stake here, with the real estate that they've got, the property portfolios they've got around the world. And they are taking this super seriously. And some of the work that they're doing in terms of the protocols that they're putting in place, the endorsements they're getting from global epidemiological associations and this kind of thing to underpin their reopening protocols is really, really impressive. And I think we could be looking to the hospitality industry for some examples of best practice to share around staff engagement and around the reopening protocols. So just something to flag up.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. David, yes, have we run out of time, or should I?
We really have. I know there's other questions, and we will come back. Cliff will come to the panelists to get answers, and we will reply to those offline. But we've come to sort of towards the end. So just as you can see in front of you, I'm going to say thank you in a second. There's webinars coming up. I know Anna, who's an EREP ambassador, is talking on words that make or break lifestyle interventions. You can put the kettle on, you can either have a cup of coffee, a tea, a beer, a wine, or whatever. I'm going to chat with some of the key equipment suppliers because life is going to change dramatically for them. Frank van der Ven, Marco Vonk, and Philip from eGym, and see what the supplier perspective is. Julian's team, obviously Julian's not going to be so hot on how to involve pregnant women during pregnancy, but he'll have some pretty hot people on that talk. And then Peter Peter Croft has Mads and Remy from Sports Solution and Excerpt on the new digital infrastructure coming up. Big thing, big active hour, Saturday 30th of May, 5 o'clock Central European time, 4 o'clock British summertime. You've got the key partners at the bottom, but really this is across Europe, supported at the absolute top highest level. I sound like Cliff there. He always says at the top highest level, but it is right from the commissioner in supporting this on getting our message across. And I ask everybody to take part in that. Get in touch with EuropeActive if you're wondering how, or go on the website. I think it's going to be an extraordinary event. It goes back, in fact, to what Inés was talking about: trade associations starting to be heard by their various governments, and our battle to be positive against the negativity of much press that comes out. So all it left for me is really say thank you very much to Inés, Thorsten, Barbara, and Liz. So many years of experience, so many people they've spoken to, so much information. There is a poll that will have come up on your screen, is useful for us. We all may feel a bit webinared out, so we're very determined to get the right webinars for what you want to listen to. So from EuropeActive and from everybody here, thank you very much for attending. Big thank you to the panel, set of really respected journalists and speakers and people who work in that sector. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.